If you didn't hear my introduction before, I work in sponsorship at TIFF. So you probably think selling sponsorships at TIFF is super easy. We have no problems because we've got Brad and Angelina and Ryan and George and everybody. They basically sell our sponsorships for us, right? That's not true. We have a $13 million target this year, and the glamour of the stars really only goes so far. We really need to employ creative strategies each year to bring in money so that we hit our target. And tonight I'm going to give you some of the tips that we use in order to hit our target. And I hope that you'll be able to use these tips as well when you're out looking for sponsorships. So I've been working at TIFF for 8 years. And at TIFF I sell festival sponsorships, but we also sell a lot of other stuff in our building, which is TIFF Bell Lightbox. If you haven't seen it, it's at the corner of King and John, and we've got stuff going on there all year round. So we just finished our James Bond exhibition. We've got a lot of film programs as well as educational programs for adults and kids as well. So we sell all of that stuff as well as the big crown, jewel in our crown, the festival. I'm going to give you some definitions before we get started so that we're all on the same page. I'm going to talk about property sometimes. So your property is really just the event that you're selling. And I'll speak about activation. So activation money is the money that a sponsor is going to spend on top of their sponsorship to get the word out. So this might be through advertising. And it's also the money they would spend to engage with attendees. So this is usually money they spend on top of the sponsorship fee. So I'm going to walk you through how to create a winning proposal. And I've put 5 steps on the website, but I've got them here and they're on your sheets as well. So the first step is knowing your property and what you have to offer potential sponsors. So a little later on, I'm going to give you some ideas that will help you brainstorm potential offering. But it's a really good idea to sit down and think about what you have to sell before you start speaking to anybody. Make a list. So I've put a slide here that'll get you thinking about it. This is actually a slide that we include in all of our sponsorship presentations so that our sponsors can start thinking this way as well. So traditional sponsorships have tended to rely on brand building. So this is getting your brand exposed to the public. So this is often through logo recognition. This could be in the naming of your event, or in our case, a building. So we're TIFF Bell Lightbox. Or it might be a logo on some of your marketing and promotional materials. Another part of brand building is rights to use your logo. So if you have a logo that a sponsor could use, that would be something that you'd want to include in your sponsorship agreement. For us, our sponsors actually pay to use the TIFF logo. Another part of brand building is advertising and also social media exposure. And that social media exposure, of course, is, more and more sponsors want that. But another part that you really need to include in your sponsorship is the business building side. So this is, getting people to actually use the products or bringing clients to your event. So this could be client hosting, so giving out tickets to your events that they can use for their clients or even their employees. It could be contests and promotions. For us, it's often win tickets to the festival. So if you've got something that a sponsor could do a contest around, use that. Product trial. So if you have an attendance base, sponsors will want to be able to give stuff out to your attendees. So offer that. And then you could take that further with an on-site activation. So if you have an opportunity to let your sponsor set up a booth or something so that they can really engage with your attendees, that would be part of the on-site activations. Another big one for us is behind-the-scenes access. So does your event have something that you can create for the sponsor that's really exclusive and that the public can't buy? That's something you might want to include in a proposal. And I've got an example of that at the end, which I'll share with you of how we did it. And the last one is employee engagement. So a lot of times employers are looking for an opportunity to give their employees volunteer opportunities. So if you're looking for volunteers at your event, certainly include that in the package as well. So we're done with that slide. Thanks. So once you've made your list of the possible benefits that you have to offer, you'll need to start reaching out to potential sponsors. I'll take you through the steps of finding sponsors, and then that'll tie into steps 2 and 3, which is reaching potential sponsors and making sure that you're speaking to the person who can say yes to your proposal. So the first one is making a list of potential categories. So think a bit about your brand and think about the types of sponsors who might be attracted to your brand. So is it banks? Is it beer? Is it makeup? So these are the kind of categories that you'd want to make a list of. Once you have this list, you've got to identify the top 3 prospects, so potential sponsors, in each of those categories. So you might do this by, number 1, figuring out who's the category leader. So who's doing the best in this category. If it's non-alcoholic beverages, you'd go after Coke. You also want to go for those brands that have the 2nd or 3rd market shares because they'll probably be looking for a competitive edge, and a sponsorship might be the way to get that edge. You also want to look for brands that are spending money in sponsorship in Canada. It's not necessary that they've already done sponsorships, but I think that goes a long way. So if you check out other websites of other organizations that sponsors are sponsoring, then find those sponsors and go after them. And then you'll also want brands that are doing business in Canada as well and selling their products in Canada. So how do you go after sponsors? That's the question. So once you have these companies, how do you find their numbers? We actually tend to use the internet a lot. So we'll Google, we'll go on LinkedIn or Facebook. If you've got friends at companies, you can ask them, who works in sponsorship or marketing or communications or community investment. Or if you're an organization that has a board, you could certainly try to go through your board members. So try to network as much as you can to make these connections, and it's okay to put the little birdie in their ear. We're looking for someone in this category. You never know when they're going to come back with a name of somebody that you can reach out to. So once you have that name and phone number, you can get in touch with them by email or phone. That's the easiest. And if you're sending an email, make sure you don't send any attachments in that first email, because sometimes they'll be blocked by firewalls, so you don't want that. And within your email, you want to start off with a personal connection. So this could be just a recent contact that you've had with their brand, so that just will catch their attention. So it's not a template email that you send to everybody. It's always got to be different. You also want to give them a compelling reason to sponsor your property. So maybe it's your brand can give them access to customers in their target demo. You also want to give them an invitation to meet to show that you're serious. And you also want to give them an easy out in the way that, if you're not the right person, can you let me know who I should be speaking with? And that will lead you as well to making sure you're speaking to the person who can say yes to your proposal. So that way they can't ignore your email, they can forward it to someone else. And then let them know that you're going to be following up in a few weeks. So that's another reason not to ignore your email, because you're going to be getting, they'll be getting another email from you soon. And then the last step is follow-up. So follow-up is key here. You can't just send one email and wait for the response to come in. You got to keep following up periodically. Research shows that it takes 5 compelling points of contact. And when I say compelling, it can't be just, hey, I sent you an email last week, I'm following up on this. It's got to be something new and interesting about their brand or about your brand that you can share with them in every single time you contact them. And then it takes 7 points of contact for them to make a decision after that. So just the moral here is don't give up. It's really a numbers game, and the more points of contact that you make, the more likely you are to find a sponsor that's the right fit for your property. Once you get a meeting, this might be your only chance to get in front of a sponsor, so you've got to make sure that this counts, especially when you're talking to corporate sponsors. They probably only have time to ever meet you once. So this leads into step 4, and that's understanding the goals and objectives of your potential sponsor before building a proposal. So you've got to think about why they would specifically benefit from coming on board. At the festival, we do a lot of research about each sponsor that we're going to meet with. So we will Google past sponsorships that they've done with other organizations. We'll look at their ad campaigns and see who they're targeting in those campaigns. And from there, we're going to customize a proposal. And if we have an opportunity, we'll try to speak with our contact one-on-one quickly before the meeting. But if that's not possible, you do all the research you can online or through your friends or however you can find out about that company. So think about this as going into an interview. You'd never go into an interview without finding out as much about the company as you could, right? So you've got to go into your meeting with that same kind of knowledge. So once you research that potential sponsor, then you should think about customizing their proposal. You wouldn't pitch us the same sponsorship to a bank as you would a gum company, for example. An example I have from the festival is Grolsch. So Grolsch is a new sponsor of ours. Maybe that's not the best example, but you'll see why the example works. We knew that their tagline was "Choose Interesting," and they were really interested in emerging filmmakers because they already had this film program in place that celebrated up-and-coming filmmakers. So we pitched them our Discovery program, which is a program that's curated film from first-time filmmakers who we really think are going to be the next big filmmakers in the world. And Grolsch loved it. They actually end up basing, their international campaign around the festival and around this program, and they've done really well. It was just their first year this past festival, and they're making great strides for the next few years of their sponsorship. So it just goes to show you that the value of creative ideas is really important. It shows the clients that you really understand their business and that you've taken the time to customize a proposal just for them. You'll find that sponsors will really fall in love with creative ideas, and they may not take the idea exactly as you pitched it, but that's okay because you've shown that you've made an effort for them, and that's how you really win over a sponsor. So this leads into my fifth step of not quite yet. Don't just slap on a logo, but to create a memorable, customized experience for your potential sponsor once you've done that research. So this goes back to that brand building versus business building slide that I showed you, that how all the different benefits that you could offer, and then you really need to mix those benefits together to create a really compelling proposal. So I wanted to share with you some neat ideas that we pitched at the festival to get the creative juices flowing. So the first one, you wouldn't immediately think of a vacuum company as being a really good fit with the festival, right? So we were tasked with going out and finding an appliance for the festival. So we were like, okay, we'll try vacuum. But then we came up with a really great idea that, and we came up with a compelling proposal for them. So I'll show you here. So what we offered was the official vacuum of the festival. So the idea was that the sponsor would provide vacuums to vacuum up all of those high-profile red carpets. We've got 5 of them that the celebrities are walking down every single day. So why not take advantage of that? And those carpets have to be cleaned every single day. So the idea is that, we could get a guy in a tuxedo vacuuming the carpets every day. But then to take it one step further is the sponsor could actually film that guy vacuuming the carpet. But then next up would be, the celebrities would be coming down the carpet. So we actually gave them footage of the celebs coming down the carpet as well. So they could put this footage together, post it on their website, on their social media sites, and then we would post it on our site as well. And it would really cement their, the exclusive vacuum of the festival. And as with any package, we would give them tickets and invites that they could use for their customers or in a promotion or for their employees. And we'd also give them the advertising and logo placement. So this really shows you how we thought about the brand building, and more the business building there and creating a really unique experience for them. A second idea is, we didn't actually come up with this idea, but I wanted to show it to you because I thought it was a really great activation. You can show the next slide. So this is the Bell O Cinema activation. So Bell's been a sponsor of the festival for a long time, and they've traditionally focused on branding and corporate hosting at the festival, among other things. But they wanted something really different to engage with and attendees this year. So we sold them a location on David Picot Square. If you're not familiar with it, this is a square that's on King Street, right beside Roy Thompson Hall. And during the festival, it's really the hub of all the action. We've got a huge red carpet there that'll have the guy in the vacuum and all the celebrities walking by. And then also just the street traffic, there's millions of people going by. So Bell set up 5 blank canvases there, and then every day of the festival, they actually had a graffiti artist come and spray paint each canvas, and it had to be on the topic of film, and it had to be in blue spray paint, because that's Bell's color. And then once the canvas was done, the festival attendees could go and get their photo taken with their phone by a Bell rep, and then the Bell rep would email the photo to them with some Bell messaging attached to the photo. They also created this really great augmented reality app where the Bell rep would put an iPad in front of the canvas that was finished, but you could actually watch the canvas being created in a time-lapse video from start to finish if you looked through the iPad. So it was a really great convergence of showing off Bell's products, but also of film and art. And it really created a lot of buzz with attendees at the festival and also across social media. And they also got great media pickup. So it really was a win-win-win for the festival, because it was something really cool so that our attendees could do while they're waiting for films, but also for Bell as well. Yeah, their agency came up with it actually. Yeah. But we loved it, and I have to say, it's, I think it was one of the best activations I've seen, and one of the best activations at the festival for sure. So to sum up, I'm going to go back to the vacuum example. So this is a proposal that we created from scratch, from having to know our property and what we had to offer potential sponsors. After that, we researched potential vacuum sponsors and made sure we were pitching the top 3 brands that we thought would want to come on for a sponsorship. We made sure we were speaking to the person who could say yes to the proposal and had them come in for a meeting. We understood the goals and objectives of that sponsor before we built anything for them. And then we created this really memorable, customized experience for our potential vacuum sponsor. So for now, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Could you give me a couple examples of some business building in terms of behind the scenes access? What were some other things TIFF did that could help other emerging festivals grow? Yeah,
I mean, I think some of our behind the scenes stuff, it does, for us it makes the most sense to do it around celebrity, so that may not, not everybody's going to have that. But we did take, that's a property that we have, and it's something that we can really leverage. So, other behind the scenes things that, we don't actually, a lot of these things we can't sell, but it would be sort of like access to the green room. So the green room is the spot where they go before they go into the film. So that's something that we offered. Another really neat activation was a red carpet experience. So a sponsor could create a contest to have just contest winners walk down the red carpet and then actually stand behind with the media to watch the celebrities go by. So that was sort of a really unique, one of a kind experience that we offered. But we did really leverage the assets that we had, which was kind of the celebrity. So I understand that not everyone's going to have that. But even if you're an artist or something, you could have a contest or something to watch, the artist paint something, and it would be, maybe 2 people could win that contest. So it doesn't need to be attached to celebrities. It just has to be something cool that the public can't buy.
I have a question about sponsorship packages. I'm a film producer, and I'm working on 2 pretty small films. So the people that make sense for us to target are smaller businesses that are in the community. So yeah. The film that we're working on is based in the Brazilian live music scene, and there's a huge amount of Brazilian dentists in Toronto. So so in that case, it's pretty hard to make a customized, I don't know, we don't have the opportunity, I guess, or it doesn't make sense to do the official dentist of this one little film. You know what I mean? So how would you suggest approaching them with that, once you get to the point where we can have a meeting with them? So how do you customize something if it's smaller and there's not the same amount of exposure that they're going to get?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to look at what do you have to offer first, and it doesn't need to be some big elaborate proposal, but I think in that situation you might actually, is it someone that you could have a conversation with first and find out what they want, or it could even just be like, if it's for you, it was a film, so maybe it's like that exclusive experience is like being on set of the film. Like, how awesome would that be? And that could be just for, if it's a dentist, it could be someone in their, one of their clients gets to, it could even be like, when you go to the dentist, you fill in a ballot, you get to be entered into this. It's something cool and exciting for their clients, right? Okay. So that could be one idea. Or that it could just be even like logo on, if you're producing anything, then they would get that. So yeah, you got to figure out what your list is, and then depending on who it is, maybe you can create something that's kind of interesting for them.
And then the other question I had, I don't know if can you speak at all to Indiegogo?
We're not
like
involved.
Kickstarter?
I don't really have any. Yeah, we're not involved in. Yeah.
Cool noise.
About what you said about proposals and so, isn't there like a website to give you a tip of how to write a proposal or anything? Or
you know what? I imagine you could probably find stuff online. I mean, for us, we create everything from scratch. But I think something you could do is take a look at organizations that are similar to yours and see if they have a proposal that you could look at. I know for us, our proposal template is actually, you can download a PDF off our website of it. So that might be a good place to start, is going to similar organizations and sort of, you're not going to copy their proposal, but you might use elements of it for your own.
There's also a lot of bloggers in this space of sponsorship. I mean, I know of one called Kim Skildum Reed, and she's been in business for over 20 years. And she's she sells books and she writes books and she does seminars, but she sometimes does free webinars. Yeah. She writes blogs on anything topical at the time, and she's very generous with her knowledge as well. So if you just Google sponsorship blogs, you'll find experts in the industry that are trying to build their own, following in that space as well, and they'll be able to give you a lot of really good tips.
Yeah, that's great.
So when you're building a sponsorship agreement, how do you kind of factor in the time of when you're going to receive the funds and when they're going to receive, I guess, on their other end, like if it's the Bell graffiti canvas, maybe if they want things to happen faster, then you're able to provide it? Like, how do you sort of negotiate terms that work for both?
Yeah, I think it's all part of the negotiation, but I can say is that you generally would always want to get your payment before you're releasing any benefits. So before you give them tickets or any sort of logo, you really need to have a signed contract. And then from there, making sure that they're paying before you release it as well. So contract signed, payment, and then benefits. We have some times where once a contract's signed, we might start giving them logo and things like that, but any sort of like hard benefits, like a ticket, or any major benefits, you got to make sure they paid before that. But yeah, sometimes it's a juggling act to make sure that it can all happen if you're working with a short amount of time.
Well, okay, in terms of sponsorship activations, and I'm speaking specifically for the organization I work with, which is a dance organization. There are a lot of restrictions. For instance, we have 2 annual dance seasons that we hold at the Fleck Dance Theatre down at Harbourfront, and there seem to be a lot of restrictions on what we can do, like in the lobby or in their event areas. And so I find that when I'm working on sponsorship packages, it's very hard to say, we can offer you, you're going to bring in an activation, and then the theater says no. I mean, you might not have this exact same problem, but how would you speak to maybe trying to work with that or get around it? Or
Well, because we actually, I guess, run into the opposite issue where we've got people coming into our building who want to do their stuff, whereas we're a Bell building, so if they have Rogers as their main sponsor, unfortunately we're not able to let them do anything with Rogers. But I guess one thing you could look to do is to align your sponsors with Harbourfronts if you're always going to be using their building. But you've got to give them something that's different from what they're getting already from Harbourfront. So that could be one way of doing it. but otherwise, I guess it's finding out if there's something on your website that you could. Do you have a website?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if, something outside of just the building that you could create for them, or if it's again like if it's something to do like some exclusive video of like a preview of a show or something like that you could give them for their website. That could be an idea that's outside of them coming into the building to do something, but they could probably do even a little commercial before that video online.
Right.
Does anyone else have any other suggestions for that? Because I'm sure other people.
Harbourfront does offer sponsorship themselves. Like with my organization, like we do a Mid-Autumn Festival with them, and so they actually sponsor our events. Like their sponsors, the Harbourfront sponsors, will sponsor our events. Yeah, so like Harbourfront has a pool of sponsors, and so they'll push it out to their sponsors, and if their sponsors want to sponsorship our events, they do so as well. Cool. So, I mean, that's a way to approach, and then that way you meet all of Harbourfront's restrictions and whatnot.
So when you go into a meeting, especially, let's say I'm a smaller organization, I get a meeting with a corporate organization, and I've never done this before. What are some of the suggestions or tips? Because it can be overwhelming. Even in interviews, I'm just like, right? So now you're dealing with money activation, all this stuff. So, like in your organization, who goes in there? And then who would you recommend going in there?
So, on our team, we've actually got 12 members of our sponsorship team, so it's really big. But we'll always go in as a team. So we'd never send someone in by themselves to a meeting. So if you're able to go with someone else, that would be great. Generally for us, it's just the sponsorship people that go. But if you're a smaller organization, you might want to bring in, potentially even the president or someone else who can speak to what you do, depending on how big or small you are. And then, going into the meeting, for us, we actually always present using PowerPoint. So whether it's like a really big pitch or a really, really small pitch, we still use a PowerPoint because I find that actually, for me at least, makes me a bit more comfortable because I've got these slides that I can speak to, and it's something visual as well for people. So if you are getting that kind of meeting where, having a presentation would make sense, that's definitely something you can do. We still sit down during most of our presentations, so it is more conversational, but we've got something visual that people can look at. So if you're able to have that kind of prop, I would recommend it. For us, we've actually got a sizzle reel. I can send it to you guys. I'll put it on the website. And the sizzle reel just sort of shows, here's what happens during the festival. Because we do tend to have a lot of people come in who've never been to the festival, may not have been to Toronto before. So then we're sort of showing off. And, for us, we're asking for a lot of money. So, they want to see Bradley Cooper, and he's in that video. But for you, even if it's with dance or something, you could show, here's what we do. So that's something that you could include in your presentation as well. Did I miss anything, or is there anything? Yeah? Okay. Oh, and I guess I have one more thing to say is that, going into the meeting, you got to know what your ultimate purpose is, of the meeting, right? So, it's to get sponsorship dollars. So I think you're always needing to make sure you're pushing the meeting towards that and keeping it on track as well. And then find out at the end, is this something that they had, wanted from you, or is this, did you put together a package that doesn't make sense? Because you're willing to look at other options as well. So get their feedback as well.
Have you ever done a sponsorship with just an artist? Have you had an opportunity to work with just a solo artist?
TIFF, you mean? Yeah. So TIFF works with filmmakers and artists, but it's actually not through the sponsorship department. It would be actually through our programming because we are a not-for-profit organization, and our mandate, along with transforming the way people see the world, is to have these learning programs for people and supporting emerging filmmakers and artists. So we certainly do that, but it's actually not through the sponsorship department. It's through our other, it's through programming that we do it.
So that would allow, let's say, a filmmaker to have exposure in a different way.
Yeah, and we actually, it's interesting because we have programs for our emerging filmmakers that it's sort of a mentorship program where they can come in and speak to filmmakers or industry leaders. And we get sponsors for that program. So, you know, RBC, they're big on emerging filmmakers, along with Grolsch. So they actually support that program as well.
How wise is it to apply for a corporate donation with a corporation first before applying for sponsorship?
I mean, for us, we keep those really separate. So our corporate, you know, a lot of times, because we have a philanthropy team as well, so they would be going after a corporate donation and we'd be going after a sponsorship at the same time. Normally it's completely separate. A sponsorship is really a marketing partnership. They're getting benefits and paying for them.
But can you apply at the same time?
Yeah, you should be able to always apply because it's most of the time it's always coming from completely different funds. One's coming from marketing budget, and then the other one would be coming from a like philanthropic or community investment or a foundation.
So I guess the success of a proposal is how well your activations appeases or like attracts
well, I think
to them.
the success comes from how creative you are with your proposal and how well you've attuned your proposal to what they want. So, you know, as I was saying, like you don't need the glamour to sell a proposal. I think you just need to be really creative with what you have to offer, and you'll win them over, I hope.
This is a branding question. In regards to the rights to use logos and place them on websites, how often do you come across problems where the people, or let's say your sponsors, have come up to you and said that the logos that you're putting on websites are too small or too big? How important is that, and why? Because I've always wondered why other logos, if you look on a program, other logos are bigger than others. Is there a reason why that is?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's for a lot of our sponsors. It's, you know, the logo always should be bigger, right? I think you need to work with, you know, either if you have a creative team or a creative person who's creating. You meet on your own publications, right? Yeah, I think it's sort of coming to a happy place with your sponsor of like how much space are you willing to give your sponsor, and that would often be negotiated even within the contract, so not afterwards. That's the hope, that you would tell them before. Like what we often do is we'll actually mock up. Here's what an ad would look like with your logo on it, and so they have an idea of sizing. But for us, for logos, our sponsors have to approve everything that they're on. So, you know, we have like thousands and thousands of materials that go out with sponsor logos. But and Bell is on every single one pretty much. So we actually have to send those to Bell every single week, and they'll approve it. So it is important that you get it right, but you do need to come to a compromise sometimes with your sponsors to, you don't want to give away a ton of space, but you also want to make sure you're giving them enough recognition that they deserve.
In regards to social media, could you give us an example of how to use social media in order to show your sponsors that you have a high number of traffic through your website?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so in our proposals, we'll talk about, here's our YouTube hits, here's our Twitter followers, here's how many Facebook followers we have, and then we'll connect that to how we can help them through through that social media base that we've created. So for the most part, through us, it's anytime a sponsor wants to do a promotion or if they're doing some kind of cool activation, like so for example when Bell was doing the activation on the square with the canvases, we actually put messages up on Facebook saying, hey, check out the Bell's activation on the square. Or Visa does a pre-sale, for example, or they'll give out special tickets. We'll talk about that in our Twitter and our Facebook as well. So it's sort of like taking the community that you have and finding how that can work well for your sponsors. I think there was one more question somewhere. Yeah.
So when you go into sponsorship meetings, do you go in with kind of like a strategy of what you're willing to offer them in terms of space? Like I know at TIFF you guys have, for the bigger sponsors, their name gets read out before films and then they have commercials and like, do you kind of have an idea in your head of like what you want to provide, what's too much, and like how do you how do you sort of negotiate that?
Yeah, I think like in the initial presentation, we're going to put together a full proposal of like here's what we can offer. And I find it doesn't actually necessarily happen in that first presentation that they're going to want to say, oh no, we want that, we don't want that. But I think that's something we'll definitely say, this is customizable. So if there's certain things that you don't want in this, we're happy to swap them out with other things. And then I think it's negotiations that happen after that. That's where you're going to sort out sort of the nitty gritty of like how much you're willing to give for the fee that they're paying. And I think you also need to be don't be afraid to say no. So, we call it like benefit creep, that, sponsors always want more and more and more and more. And so I think it's okay to say no, because if you keep giving all your benefits away, you're not going to have them to sell someone else. So once you come to an agreement in the contract, try to stick to that as much as you can. So, yeah. That's it. Oh, well, thanks everybody. I really appreciate it. Great.